Hi, Mr. Kane here, and we're going to start looking at the bits and pieces that build up living organisms and plants. So we're going to look at the cells. Okay, that's the basic unit of life. There's nothing smaller than that we can call living. Go back to your Mrs. C. Green stuff, and the cell is the smallest unit that satisfies all those characteristics. And get a bunch of cells together, we've got what's called a tissue. Put some tissues together, you get an organ. Put organs together, you've got an organ system, and a bunch of organs working together, we've got you. So cells go to make up one of you. So everything that we consider living is made of cells. You've got one cell, you're a unicellular thing. You've got two or more, we call you multicellular. And we're going to get into plants. We need to know a bit more about cells and what's going on inside them, and we also need to be able to use a microscope, but that will come in a later video. So here's some trivia. We can't see them without magnification. That's why we need a microscope. We have about 75 plus trillion cells in our body. That's a lot of zeros, that's a lot of cells. Your skin cells, we replace it basically every month roughly. Most of the dust inside your house, that would be skin cells. And there's more nerve cells in your brains than there are stars in our Milky Way galaxy. So, what have cells got in common? Right, as I said before, we'll repeat that, it's an important thing. It's the smallest thing that can perform all the life functions. All those definitions that we put together in Mrs. C. Green. There's a simple diagram of the cell with some of the things that it has inside it to help it do what it needs to do. If you want to find out more about those, stick around until you start biology in the senior school. So, size and shape depends what a cell does. Okay, red blood cells, nerve cells, bacteria, plant cells. They've all got different jobs, and the shape of the cell relates to the job it does. Okay, once again, the tiny building blocks that make up living things. Can't stress that enough. So what have they got? All cells have a cell membrane. It's sort of a plastic bag around the outside that controls what goes in and out. It's got this goop inside called cytoplasm. And it's got a control centre, the nucleus in the middle of the cell. Right, so look at those things in more detail. So around the outside edge, protective layer controls what comes and goes in and out of it. Every cell has one of these. Okay, if you burst this, the cell basically explodes, the insides come out and it's dead. Cells that have cell walls, this membrane will be pressed up hard inside the cell wall. So, for example, this cell here, this is the membrane, and if it had a cell wall, the cell wall will be right around the outside edge of that there, right against the outside. You can't really distinguish between the two when you're looking at a microscope. And it's like the controlling gates, if you like. Let's certain things in and certain things out, and controls that, keeps some things out that should stay out. Cytoplasm, it's a jelly that's inside the cell. Goop, full of the little bits and pieces of machinery, if you like, that the cell needs to function. It's jelly-like. It's constantly flowing around. They're inside the cell here. We've got the cytoplasm always flowing backwards and forwards and around. It's like the circulation we talked about, Mrs. C. Green. It needs to move around to carry the stuff that the cell needs to everywhere it needs to go. Sometimes called protoplasm. Nucleus, that's the control centre, the boss's office, where the blueprints are kept. It's in charge of all the things that go on inside the cell. Instructions for everything are in the nucleus. Okay, have you ever heard of stuff called DNA? That's the instructions written down in a special code. And it's usually the largest thing you can see inside the cell. So, plant cells, if you're looking at these three things, you've got a plant cell. If it has a cell wall, if it has chloroplasts, and if it has a large sort of bag inside the cell that's full of liquid, that's the vacuole. So a bit more about the cell wall. Okay, it gives those plant cells like a box-like appearance, protects the cell from more things can come in and out, sort of helps hold things up. It gives it shape and gives it structure. And it's made of stuff called cellulose. We as humans can't digest it. It's pretty hard to digest. It's pretty tough stuff. Animals that eat lots of plants have special bacteria and special intestine gut systems that help them digest it. And we find it in these things. Okay. Chlorophyll. It's a green pigment that gives leaves and stems the colour that plants have. It reflects green light and absorbs every other colour of light. And it's capturing the sunlight that produces food called glucose. So it captures the sun's energy in the leaf, in the cells, and that pointer you can see is pointing. You see the green dots in there? That's the chlorophyll inside things called chloroplasts that produce glucose, which is a kind of sugar which plants use for food, and all things that eat plants use the energy that plants have made for us. And then there's a vacuole, this big space inside the cell, and it's like a storage space, food, water, waste materials, and the water pressure inside there help holds the plant up. In a really hot, dry, sunny summer days, your plants start to wilt a bit, they're getting low on water. So simple diagrams, you can see they've all got cell membranes. So they've all got a cell membrane, they've all got cytoplasm, they've all got a nucleus, but only the plant cell has a chloroplast, vacuole, and a cell wall. So if you're looking at one of those last three things, you've got a plant cell. It's a bit like a factory, your cell. Think of it like a factory. Here's a factory. What have we got inside there? Control centre, the boss's office. You can see the guy looking at the blueprints there. The plans, what's going to go on. We've got a power plant. We've got assembly machines, food supply, storeroom for stuff, a transport system, a factory fence around the outside. We've got all those things inside a factory. So a cell is like a factory. So what does a cell have? A cell has a nucleus with chromosomes containing DNA, which are the plans for what's going to go on. It's got these things called mitochondria, which are the power plants of the cell. Ribosomes, which assemble all the things that the cell's going to make. It's got chloroplasts, which provide energy for the cell. It's got vacuoles that help store stuff. Plants have one big one, animal cells have lots of smaller ones. There's a fake word. Endoplasmic reticulum, often just shortened to ER. Sort of transport stuff around inside the cell. And you've got the cell membrane, keeping things in or out as the case may be. So the cell is just like a factory inside of you. Here's some pictures. There's some cheek cells, blobby looking things. The blue blob you can see inside there, where are we? The blue blob, that's the nucleus. There's a labelled drawing. Onion cells. Probably you'll make an onion cell slide on a microscope. You can see in here is the nucleus, and you can sort of see these look like bricks have been laid in the wall. That's the cell wall, and the membrane will be right on the inside layer of that. You're so hard up against it you can't tell where it is. Now we've got specialised cells that do special jobs inside us. Look at these things. What are they? Right, that's the nerve cell, and you can see the centre of the cell, and you can see the nucleus in there, but you've got these, what they call ganglion, they're called these things that stretch off, and they make the connections to other nerve cells. It's like our wiring system, basically. What else we got? Here we go. That's a sperm cells and egg cell. So the big round thing looks like a planet in there. It's the biggest cell we're going to have in a human body, if you're a female. It's the egg cell. And the little things look like tadpoles on the outside. That's sperm. Only one of them will get in, and that'll fertilise the egg, and that's the beginning of a baby. That's muscle cell. Long fibres that can slide past one another to make muscles move. And red blood cells look a little bit like sort of lollies of some sort. That shape special, maximises their surface area, allow them to do their job of carrying oxygen and carbon dioxide around our body and our bloodstream. So, From cells we get tissues, from tissues we get organs, from organs we get organ systems, and from organ systems we get an organism. Us, a living thing. That's cells. I hope that was helpful, and thank you very much.